joining us today. We will be talking about in-video intelligence for the next 15 minutes or so. We have 4 speakers with us today to discuss this new concept. So what lies behind it and how it will, and in several cases, how it is already changing the OTT landscape. I'm going to start by introducing the speakers. So I'm really happy to welcome with us Christopher Kuthan, who's the head worldwide business development, direct-to-consumer streaming for the media and entertainment industry at Amazon Web Services. He's working with media companies and advertisers to build and deploy their DtoC offerings on Amazon platform. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thanks, great to be here.
Hi. Then we also have with us Paul Moore, who has been in the media industry for over 15 years now and also has a very long expertise in the IT field, notably in terms of video streaming, 3D, digital preservation, social media, video analytics, and recommender systems. He's a member of the DtoC scientific community and is also responsible for the media industry in the DtoC expert community. Thanks, Paul, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We also have Thomas Bidet, who's the Chief Product Officer for ETF1. So he's developing the biggest private French broadcasters' digital product strategy and roadmap on the B2C segment and across all screens. And he will be giving us insights on how broadcasters are being challenged when moving towards the OTT world lately. Hi, Thomas.
Nice to meet you, thanks.
Thank you. And finally, we have Steve Sklipowicz, who's the Senior Strategy Advisor for Synchronized. He's based in the US, and he's working on new partnerships and growth. He's been advising technology companies on product categories and AI strategies for the last 10 years. And he will be talking today about synchronized media intelligence solution, how they transform linear video into smart video, and how they collect, treat, and centralize metadata, objects, and assets on the OTT environment. Hi, Steve.
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
Thanks. So, Steve, I would like to start with you. If you could give us a few words by introducing the concept of in-video intelligence, which is going to be the core of our discussion today, before we kick off the panel session with the rest of the speakers.
Sure. So in-video intelligence, or IVI, is actually a new market category. And while today's MAM systems have been around, offer all kinds of rich data about what's around the video, and video data analytics systems track how consumers consume video, unfortunately, the data inside the video is not visible. So the essence and contents of the video are essentially hidden and sealed inside the video box. And so in-video intelligence, or IVI, is here to help solve that problem as a new category of solutions. Essentially enabling access to that data, making it more transparent, interactive, and intelligent. So it's a new category of product, and we're happy to be talking about it today.
Thank you very much. So before we start the discussion, I would like to remind our audience that you can drop your questions for all of our speakers in the Q&A section, and we will take time at the end of this panel to answer. Also, this webinar is being recorded, so you can watch it again very soon and also share it with some colleagues if you'd like. So to start the panel discussion, I would like each of you to give me some insights about the industry and what are the big challenges that you see on the OTT ecosystem. We've seen in the last years that the market is very fragmented. We have a lot of OTT players, which creates challenges in terms of differentiation. But there's also another big challenge, which is the abundance of content available on those digital platforms, with very large libraries being offered to viewers and a lot of content being aggregated on those platforms, which creates also challenges in terms of viewer experience and content discovery improvements. So I would like to start with Thomas, maybe, as you're working for traditional TV broadcaster moving towards OTT. How can content publishers compete with global giants on the OTT environment? What are the main challenges that you've seen?
Good question. You have 2 hours for me. It will be long. I think the idea the goal we aim currently at TF1 is around this concept of choice paradox. I don't know exactly the expression in English, but le paradoxe du choix in French. And I saw and I wrote some articles very recently around Netflix issue and pain points around this choice paradox. And I think this idea of data in videos and the way we can have more content and more description around video content is a key issue for us to address this problem of choice of content. And you spoke about abundance of content, and that's exactly the case for us. And we have a catalog. For example, we recently had a catalog of 9,000 hours of AVOD content on MyTF1. And the way we promote this content and we index this content in MyTF1 is just a problem. It's just a pain point for us. And that's why we work with Synchronized for 2 years now. It's the good way for us to have this data and to put this data in front of user value, and the user experience is a key in our strategy, and that's why Synchronized helped us to do so.
Thank you, Thomas. Chris, I would like to ask you a similar question. What are the key differentiators on the OTT market nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what Thomas said, and I would also want to start really with the data, and both obviously definitely on the consumer data and like interaction data and kind of building the right data structure to capture that, like what are the consumer doing, but also really understanding how they're interacting with the content in every moment, right? That's like, if you understand what the consumers are clicking at and what they're watching and what they are abandoning and what they're interacting with, what they're sharing and so forth, that's great. But if you don't know what specifically is in the content, it's kind of what I like to say is like one hand clapping, right? You need to also understand what's actually in the content that triggers these interactions. And that's why, so both on the user data, but on the other side, also the content data is very important. And out of that deeper understanding, there come differentiation opportunities, right? So this understanding can form inputs into recommenders that can inform inputs into content decision, even greenlighting decisions that can go into innovation, you know, like trying out, maybe A/B testing some new interactive, maybe innovation formats, right? Like, and then you're able to interact with this view, like you're able to measure the interaction of the viewers and see how your innovation, how your offering and so forth resonates. So again, really around data mostly and what you can do with it.
Paul, now I'm turning to you. How can tech partners enable OTT players to maximize the value of their content, of their digital assets?
Well, I mean, we've known for years the issues for media companies, especially the national media companies that are competing against the big tech ones. It's personalization, it's engagement, it's taking advantage of their archive. So if we can get better information about, on the one hand, the audience, but on the other, about the content itself, then we can do a much better job. We can help the media companies do a much better job with increasing the personalization, with creating more engagement, with creating more intimacy with the viewers. So how can we help? Well, we can help them to better understand their audience, but also what's specific with the in-video intelligence, how to better understand the content.
Thanks. And Steve, now also your take on this. What's the role of in-video intelligence in the OTT landscape?
Yeah, so I think just, I think the recap on consumers aren't getting the most optimized experience, and so this improves that. I think this is helping just the monetization model, offering more personalized content, the segments that people want to watch when they want to watch it. And I think also just on the productivity of the workflow, it's a huge drain on a team to manually tag, thousands of hours of video. And so they could do that in much more productive ways. And so if there's a way to automate and assist the editorial process so those creative people can be more creative and not spend their time on mundane repeat tasks, there's a lot that can be done right in the editorial workflow using the in-video intelligence.
Thank you, Steve. So you mentioned several big challenges that OTT players are facing now, and what are the solutions that IV can help them for optimizing their assets. I would like to start with the first one you mentioned in terms of optimizing consumer experience. How can we improve UX and viewer satisfaction, especially when it comes to access to content and content discovery? We've seen that OTT players have more and more content available on their platforms. What can IV do to facilitate viewers' journey throughout this content? Maybe Thomas, if you want to start with that, as you mentioned, you integrated a very large library on MyTF1. What were the challenges you faced, and what were the solutions that you implemented?
Yeah, the issue of productivity of our content team is a key issue too. I spoke about front and UX assets because it's more valuable for us and in terms of business. But of course, on the cost side and regarding the cost of content editing, of course, there is a problem because the ROE is not easy. When you add metadata, you have a lot of work during all the workflow, all the process of ingest videos, and after that you have the CMS, and after that you have the exploitation on the front side. But what's interesting is the way we put metadata, and it creates values at each step of this workflow. Automatization in the CMS, but also in front, it's interesting for Google because in terms of search engine optimization, these metadata could be really useful for us to be relevant in a Google algorithm. It's interesting in terms of information in for example, on the show page, you want to see, I don't know, the show, The Voice, and you want to have information around the voice with the anchorman, the characters, the candidates, etc. All this is a lot of work for our team to put this information in the CMS, and Synchronized help us to create this metadata and to extract it from the video content, and that's really useful. And another example I'm sure could be relevant for you is what we did with the smart thumbnail. We create machine learning on a synchronized side that extracts the good and the most relevant picture of a content, and we use it on the front side. Sometimes human is better, so you have the possibility to change this proposition, this machine proposition, but generally we keep it, and it's really interesting to have this quality of thumbnail and of images on the MyTF1 website or the application. So these are different ways to create value around metadata and machine learning. So that's cool. And it's complementary with team, and that's important for me to explain to you, because we could see this kind of project as only a cost side project and a cost value project, but it's not the case. For us, it's a way to gain some time and some bandwidth in the team to do other things, to create articles, for example, or to choose some new contents, and this is really helpful, really.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for your insights. Chris, do you also have things to share about this? Because I've seen you reacting quite positively to those comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great to hear Thomas to say that, because that's what we see really as a key across the globe, right? That customers use specifically that, like the intelligence that you can gain with machine learning services out of this out of the content, so the data you can get out of the content for building then the UX experiences. But so on the back end, you can use AI ML to get more of this data out and to accelerate processes. 100% see that. Help free up, the employees from like mundane tasks, and like really have them focus on like very added value tasks. And then on the front end, this data informs them, for example, recommenders and personalization and so forth in a much deeper way, right? So that maybe one word to that, like you have like recommenders of video, like what kind of videos do I have that I can recommend, right? So like this metadata can inform get better information about like what I have in my archive or what I have available. But also it can help me, for example, to personalize and tailor kind of the ad experience, for example, right? Like, so give like really personalized ads or more tailored ads. And I really like what Thomas said, and I really like the projects they did there when it comes to the, for example, use that information together with AIM to even improve the artwork, or like kind of personalize the artwork. I mean, they did it with thumbnails, right? So like you can even go further and say select the right thumbnails and then personalize the thumbnails, right, to like the viewer of the platform, right? So that's like maybe 3 categories of personalization that are being informed by that data. And to generate that data, you need AI ML and things like video intelligence to kind of feed that data pipeline.
I have one other just to add there, which is the ability to, if you have an hour-long broadcast and you only have 5 minutes to watch it, to be able to identify the segments that you're most interested in. And so the concept of a smart segment where you can actually present, or the system can present to you maybe 6 minutes of content, because that's all the only time you have. It's the most relevant stuff that you've identified for you. So it's the ability to personalize based on the ability to look inside the video and see the segments that are relevant at that moment for the user.
You could even create something like a catch-up service, right? You jumping into a game or something like at a certain point, but like you make even a kind of a personalized potentially a summary of what you missed, and then catch up from where the game starts again. So there's but you can only do that when you know what's going on in the video, right? So that's an example.
Thank you. Paul, do you want to add something also, maybe some insights or business cases regarding recommenders? Or
well, just in general, first off, we see with our customers, with our clients, that they're being required to produce more and more content. Every year, more channels, more content, whatever. And at the same time, they're at best maintaining the same number of employees. So they need to find ways to automate these tasks. So on the one hand, the paradox of choice that was being talked about before, there's more and more information, but there's fewer or the same number of people to somehow organize that information. So anything that can be done to increase the automation level, maybe not to 100%, but at least making it easier for the employees, to the media company employees to organize that information is a huge help. And probably also increasing their satisfaction, their job satisfaction. Get rid of the mundane, boring tasks. Instead of choosing between 100 thumbnails, choosing between 2 or 3 is more satisfying, right? Just these are the 3 best, which is the best, rather than going through a whole bunch, whatever. And then there's the other side. Maybe I'll talk not from the point of view of a tech company, but from the point of view of an end user. Recommender engines just don't work all that well. When I connect to the OTT platforms, I spend a lot of time trying to find what I want. I seem to recall reading an average of, I can't remember, 15 minutes or something like that, that people spend looking for content. And that's ridiculous. You know, if it's your first 5 times going on a platform, then that's fine. But if you've been on that platform, you know, hundreds of times, if you've watched, you know, hundreds of movies and series, how can they not know what you like? And every time I connect, I get the feeling they don't know what I like. So if we can understand the video better, they've seen what I've watched. So if they know what I've watched, if they understand better what that content is, then they should be able to provide me with a much more satisfying recommender experience, let's call it. And right now, I'm not getting that satisfactory recommender experience, I think. Sorry, Tom. Sorry.
No,
Where do
true,
you think
true.
the key is to improve the recommender indeed?
Well, just better understanding the content. Right now, it's very few parameters. And if we understand the content better, whether it's who the actors are, whether it's, you know, it's not just genre, you know, you can be a lot more specific about that than that. So there can be all kinds of.
Thomas, maybe. Thomas, maybe you can give us some insight, since you're working from a linear stream towards the OTT world and moving into digital platforms. Of course, we get a much more granular insights on what audiences watch, what their behavior is on the platform. Can you see maybe different patterns? How did it help you to change maybe your strategy online?
Yeah, very interesting what you said, Paul. I totally agree with everything. Netflix speaks of 19 minutes on average per for the choice of a content on an average partner or behavior. So that's interesting to see how our work is to reduce this time of products of choice. Another point regarding your question, Ophélie, is around the evolution of the usage. And I'm sure between linear and catch up, between linear and extracts or scenes, there are a lot of work to do and improvement in the way we promote our content and we give access to this content. It was Christopher who spoke of the extract of scenes of the content, what I call point of interest. We have a feature in our player that gives you the possibility to access a point of interest. For example, a goal during a match, or a scene during a movie or a series. And I remember 2 or 3 years ago, I was totally horrified by the speed watching feature in YouTube or every player. And I'm surprised today because I use it. For example, for documentaries, for movies, it's more difficult. But for example, for documentaries, it's totally relevant. But 2 years or 3 years ago, I thought it was just impossible to watch something with speed watching. So we see that usages are going and going further, and we need to give an answer in terms of UX in MyTF1. And we do now offer this functionality too, and we have problems with producers. That's another question. That's another issue. But because of the integrity of the content, of course. But this is for me. This is another real issue regarding discovery on one end, access to content, and after that, the way I consume this content and I have no time, and maybe I want to consume it in different way, speed watching, extract scenes, with the sound, without the sound, with subtitles, without subtitles. It's just infinite. So I think all the possibilities are on the table, and now we need to keep it simple, because when we have a player with a lot of functionalities, with too technical image or feeling, I don't think it's a good way to do entertainment. And that's why I don't want to have the strategy, for example, of a YouTube that is a more technical player. We keep it simple, but with flexibility to consumers.
Also, I think younger viewers,
Yeah,
you know, they view things differently.
Yeah.
Most content, they're probably not going to sit still for 2 hours for most content. You need to give it to them in
correct.
ways. Broadcasters such as yourselves are losing younger viewers. You need to adapt to this different way of consuming, whether it's content itself that is shorter, whether it's segmenting and choosing, as you were talking about, whether it's speed viewing. I mean, that's absolutely vital to keep and hopefully get back these younger viewers, right? You know, the TikTok generation is just, you know, most of us in this call seem to be, you know, bald guys. So, you know, we're not the 20-year-old TikTok viewer probably, but you know, you need to get those people back.
Yeah, the vertical content is is another aspect of our work today in terms of innovation, because we know young people when they are, for example, outside home, they want to keep their smartphone like this and not like this, and that's just usage. And 80% of young people just want it. Okay, so TikTok generation, as you said, and we need to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Chris, do you have things to share?
I mean, I just maybe want to add on the TikTok generation. So there is, I mean, and it all plays then again back into what we already discussed. So if you build an experience like that, even if you can even think of it like taking it further, right? Like very interactive potential experiences. I've seen a lot of interest with interactive experiences, kind of enabling creators, you know, like with followers and so forth, or really create communities around certain content, a lot of user-generated content. Or, I mean, I'm opening up here a big thing, like, but you know, obviously this is the consumption pattern at the moment. Twitch, and not to stick with TikTok, but Twitch, for example, enabling a viewer pattern that, for example, my kids, that's what they watch, right? They're short and so forth. But again, underneath, when you understand what's in first, if you want to even think of going to user-generated content, you need something like video intelligence, because you need to understand what's being uploaded to the platforms, right? So there's a supply chain thing there that, you know, you want to do, you know, provide safety with the content that's being uploaded. But beside that, you like when you understand what's in that pieces of content and how, again, what I said at the beginning, viewers are interacting with that, you can obviously inform a lot of recommendation underneath. You can inform, you can, again, take that learning and see like what kind of content shall I be creating. So taking it kind of the streaming level to the interactive level is very much supported as well by, you know, in like understanding what is in the videos and what the viewers are doing with the videos. So that there's a couple of elements that come even with you know,
I also think just the relative, when you talk about, you know, today's metadata versus what's possible with looking at the data inside the video, there's just going to be so much more data, you know, versus the tiny amount of relative, you know, metadata, right, about the video. So it's just what can be possible once you get inside and really start looking at that data, I think would be interesting.
I mean, that's underneath a big reason for the success of platforms like that, right? So you see one video, as Thomas said, like in that format, you see it in front of you, and at point X, somebody does something, right? He likes it or shares it or goes to the next, swipes it or whatever. I mean, that's like a recommendation. That's like it's like a perfect situation for what we're discussing here, right? But you need to understand what's going on at the moment that like or whatever is being generated, right? And that way you can build an experiences based on top of that. Sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, like what triggers the interaction with the content, what triggers the viewers. One topic also that I would like to have your insights on is monetization, because when it comes to OTT platforms, we've seen many different types of business models, whether it is AVOD or SVOD, TVOD, EST. How can data utilization help us to create new opportunities for monetization and maybe just maximize the quality of this monetization? Steve, if you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just at the base level of just auto detecting ad breaks, right, which is going to be relatively easy to do. I think it's being contextual about looking before the ad spot and try to make the ad relative to the relevant rather to the content. Can you get the ad into the right place that matches, that has some relevance to the content? I mean, an example being a car ad that's followed by a car chase, right? Is there some meaning that you can pull, context that you can pull out of the stream that ultimately gets you an ad at that right time? So as opposed to being based on user data, can it be based on contextual information in the stream as the user is experiencing it? I think will be really interesting for, and that's really future speak for advertising, but more contextual advertising drives potentially more engagement and revenue.
Thank you. Maybe Thomas, did the move towards OTT also change the way that broadcasters are selling advertisement in the digital environment? How is that being shaped differently, and how is the data input from the OTT environment helping with head sales?
Yeah, of course, advertising is our main model for the moment. We try to increase the value of data, very large data, behavior or qualification during the checkout process, etc. We are not going very deep in the way we catch this data during the video consumption. I think there is a field to be explored on our side. We are just at the beginning. It's more before, during the onboarding, the checkout, authentication process, but during the video consumption, we don't do a lot. Of course, the ad break, for example, with a feature very simple. For example, we have an ad break, an ad pause. If you put your video on pause, you have a display that is displayed very simply. But for the moment, I'm sure we can catch this data and use it for more and more process of sales. But keep in mind that in Europe, especially, we have the RGPD, we have these constraints and CNIL and so on and so forth, and that's a bit difficult for us for the moment to have the good level of usage of this data. So maybe in the future it could be better than today.
I mean, the other side is better utilization of the archive, right?
Yeah.
It's providing long tail content to users, but it can also be reutilization of content, especially for documentaries and things. And if you don't have a deep understanding of what is in the archive, then to find what it is you're looking for is, for a media company is really hard, right?
For sure, but it's not in our DNA, because we have 80% of our consumption. It's during the 3 or 4 days after the broadcasting. We are very very close to the live process and the linear process. But of course, the long tail could be something really useful for us to have the good way, and in terms of SEO, it could be really useful to link content between them. But I think we are beginners on this aspect.
When something happens, somebody gets married, somebody dies, or whatever,
yeah.
To find relevant content also is not all that easy if you don't have a properly annotated archive, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that avoids the sneak connect, right? That you have a news event and you send somebody. I heard that term at some point in my past, when you have a news event and you send somebody down 3 blocks to go to the archive and get the VHS cassette, like with the title written on it about that person. So it's like a joke, but like, you know, if you obviously that's actually a key use case, right? So like like if you need like if you have a news event and you need immediate information about the person in the event or the company or whatever, that you can get it out of the archive quick. So that's a key use case.
But maybe it's more relevant for platform, for video platform with this long tail strategy, for short video, for short content. On MyTF1, most of our consumption is for long video, long content. So maybe you don't want to have this kind of interruption or metadatas with you know, the biggest amount of data and section and information during the visualization. And for example, on Netflix, it's quite the case. It's not really enriched. I think maybe it's the difference with X-ray on your side. Amazon X-ray for me is more a long tail perspective. In terms of metadata usage, it's more advanced. But with IMDb, you have IMDb for 25 years, if I remember well. So it's your DNA to have this asset.
Yep.
Steve, you want to add something on that?
No, I think we did cover a lot of the points here. I think it's more about now thinking about productivity above, you know, there's this sort of the money making, and then there's the cost saving part of it. And so it's like thinking about how to balance that.
An interesting point that Thomas made earlier about how in video intelligence can be complementary to the teamwork, and how it can be used as a resource to better allocate the team on new projects and automate.
Yeah, I think absolutely productivity is there to assist the human process. I mean, the more automation can help take care of sort of the the mundane tasks and make it more efficient, so that the creative editorial team can focus on being creative. I think that's really an important point, right? So you're not spending hours tagging something. You're spending much more time focused on the UX and how you can better, just assume that tagged content will come to you. So you're not having to. I mean, it's a human plus AI workflow that ultimately results in a better user experience, a better monetized experience. And how do you sort of factor in the productivity gains that you can get out of it to ultimately push the consumer experience forward?
Mm-hmm. Chris, can you maybe give some insights also on that, on how Hy-Vee can help with automation and balance it with also human resources?
Yeah, I mean, there's we already talked about a lot of the elements, but like maybe I want to add like human in the loop, for example, definitely adds more metadata, right? I mean, it's just impossible for a purely human workflow to add that level of metadata. I mean, like when you look into like just every frame, there's a lot of information in every single frame, right? So how are you going to tag that manually? And then also sometimes also the quality, right? Because there's, just I mean, it's obviously levels of quality depending on who is tagging it. So with AI and these services, you kind of bring this up to a certain level, and then you have human in the loop kind of improving on it. So it definitely adds quality, the amount. And then there are use cases like we already mentioned, covered like brand safety, like filtering out inappropriate content at user-generated content, or also like we talked about monetization, right? Just like certain branding rules within the ad pods, for example, right? I don't want to have this brand together with that other brand in the same ad segment, for example, or I want to avoid. I mean, the example everybody quotes, right? I want to avoid an airline commercial after like a bad airline situation in the video, right? So so these kind of things. But if you don't have that deep understanding of the videos and of the ads, you cannot match these things. By the way, you can also go the other way. Obviously, just last comment, you can since you have now this information, you can also go and create this kind of, let's say, ad moments, right? You can say, okay, in the video before you have palm trees and music and cocktails and whatever. So maybe I add that, I sell that ad moment to a brand, you know, for like an increased CPM or whatever. So anyway, so you need, we were at the operational level, you need a lot of data in order to create these kind of experiences, and for that AI/ML is being used a lot.
Thank you very much. Moving forward now, because we don't have that much time left, so I would remind the audience that you can drop questions in the Q&A box, and we'll take 5 minutes at the end to respond. I would like to ask all of you, what do you see in the future? Like, where is data utilization gonna go, and what are the big new opportunities that you're looking forward to that we're not yet able to implement on OTT platforms, but that you would see coming up soon? Maybe Paul, if you would like to start.
Well, I mean, in a sense, it's not new, but just actually taking, as what I was talking about earlier, content recommendation and all that, bringing together properly deep audience insights together with deep insights about the video. And moment by moment in the video, I think there are a lot of things that are not yet being considered in terms of understanding video that we will be seeing in the future. You know, the tone, the types of people on screen, all those kinds of things also influence people's acceptance, people's, you know, how much they enjoy something. So the level of understanding of the video will be much higher. And also, as I said, the level of understanding of the audience, we will see much higher levels. And when you bring those two together, it can be really, really meaningful. Going a little bit farther out into the future, if we start you know, having more inputs from the audience, haptics, understanding people's moods and emotions, and then joining that together with what's happening in the video and perhaps recommendations, we could also see some really interesting things happening, and that leads also into interactivity, maybe a sort of implicit interactivity, let's say. The video responds to people's emotions, but you need to understand what is in the video to be able to do that.
Yeah. Chris, do you also have things to share? Like what's coming up next?
A lot been said already. I mean, I definitely want to plus one Paul's comment on the interactivity side. I like the implicit interactivity, which is like modes, you know, like what kind of content do I serve up at what time of the day, or how I'm feeling, or whatever, almost like a podcast that's already been done to a degree, right? So it's like a very, that's definitely something that's very interesting. Obviously, taking that to the next level with like interactivity, I mentioned it already, like the community builders and the creators, and like really following the content that you specifically like, and then even going and then kind of building monetization models on that, right? So if I have a creator I love and I follow and I have a community, then I can go and like maybe offer like an upgraded experience and kind of sell, for example, a private session with that creator to explain me something and I'm interested in, right? And things like that. So taking it from one to many to one to a few to one and back and forth. So like this kind of spectrum is really something I see experimentation with a lot, and it's really interesting. One more sentence maybe to the monetization side, really making that return on investment of that ad spot or the ad in general, bringing that higher up, and then on the other side, reducing the ad load, right? So there's, in that spectrum, there's a lot we can do, right? So they say like, I mean, I don't want to go to like product placement, but that's kind of the extreme, right? You have a personalized product placement, right? You have a video and you like understand who is watching it and what the preferences are, and you overlay, I don't know, somewhere a certain product, right? That's great, right? But also just making the more traditional ad spots just much more personalized and tailored and so forth is very, very interesting. So really like this kind of two things, maybe I see a lot of activity around.
Thank you, Chris. Thomas, maybe now, what are you looking forward to?
Same thing, but I think we are not so advanced at MyTF1. I'm very humble and modest because what's around mood, for example, it's something I really I'm really keen on in my personal experience on some platforms. You are in a mood optimistic, or you want something more dark, and you add this sensor of the machine learning that can generate a recommendation not only based on your age, on your profile, on your previous videos, but on your mood, on your emotion of the moment. That's really, really interesting. And for the moment, I don't see many examples. I didn't see many examples of machine learning tagging of mood. If I take a competitor, my canal in France, Canal Plus, you have tagging, but it's human tagging. It's a content team that put the tags because they know really well what's the emotion behind the content. On the machine learning side, I don't know if for the moment it's relevant. Maybe yes, I don't know, but this is a way to improve the UX around video. And another way, and something we are looking at, of course there is interactivity, but we failed a lot on that. I'm really honest with you. I created 5 or 6 years ago a second screen experience on MyTF1 during The Voice, during soccer match. It was really difficult because AWS was not was not able to. Today it could be, I think, possible with you, but 5 years ago it was really difficult in terms of tech, and the usage was not here. But now the co-watching is a feature that can be worked. We saw initiatives on Disney Plus and maybe Peacock. I don't remember exactly which platform. So co-watching, maybe this idea of sharing experience with friends and so on. And we saw FaceTime. Apple at the WWDC launched the FaceTime sharing video. That's quite close to that, and I think there's something around this to work on. And that's it. Emotion, yeah, point of interest, metadatas.
I also think that merchandising linked deep into the video is interesting. I mean, we've talked about that a long time in IPTV, and just seeing experiences that could be more directly, in your face around hotspot generation or identification of products for sale. I mean, the other thing we're looking at is something called, natural cinema language technology to, maybe pull out a movie trailer, being able to, extract a summary of that. You have natural language processing on text and voice, and so can you pull out a preview of a video? There's all kinds of interesting use cases that you can think about in terms of repurposing and aggregating and segmenting, for whatever purpose that might be, whether it's a localized or whether it's, I mean, there's all kinds of options there, but I think those are two interesting things that I think about.
Yeah, of
just
course.
One comment also on interactivity, especially over through the last 18 months, where we all went through a little bit the global experience here. There's a lot of innovation in that field. Also, quite frankly, not only out of the media space, but just from companies that had to build engaging interactive experiences because otherwise were out of business, right? I mean, Jim and so like really like media is not my business kind of companies, right? So there's a lot of things, and that accelerated, I think, a lot of the thinking as well in that area. So just wanted to add that.
Another area is multi-channel experiences. That exists obviously now, but the media companies are not really taking advantage of it. You know, the Twitters and the Facebooks and the whoever
For sure.
are getting all of that, whereas the media companies, you know, they're where it comes from. Perhaps people watching TV and then things happening in parallel, or people having multi-channel experiences in parallel, but the media companies aren't taking advantage of it. If they understood, I mean, it takes more than just this, but if they understood their video a little bit more, because for that, you need to know exactly what's happening right now. When somebody reacts on Twitter, it's mostly because what's happening right now. So they can take advantage of that much better with something like, you know, what we've been talking about, the in-video intelligence.
Okay, thank you very much all. I'm gonna take a few questions now. We only have 5 minutes, so I don't think we can cover all of them. But maybe to start with one of the questions that's kind of related to what Steve just talked about regarding trailers, automated I think you said cinema language technology. So we had a questions on how do you see the importance of trailers for series content to capture the audience? For example, HBO does not provide series trailers, but Netflix does. Steve, do you want to react to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, from a technical standpoint, it's possible. I don't know. I mean, from a use case perspective, maybe that's Thomas, maybe more your expertise in terms of the service, right? I mean, I think technically it's feasible to imagine that being a very relatively short-term thing that can happen. So it's more about, yeah, is that a useful use case from a service provider perspective? I don't know the answer. So other than that, it's interesting and it's possible. I think it's completely productive for the team. It's more about what the service provider would think of that. I don't have the insight.
Another question was, what is the level of data maturity of broadcasters in Europe or in the US? Maybe Thomas, if you want to give some insights on that, since you're a French broadcaster.
To be honest, in France, I'm not sure we are the best players. Regarding broadcasters, but I think our focus was during the 4 or 5 years was really on the quality of service and remain and be really good in the way we broadcast content on our websites and applications. For example, yesterday. I don't have the possibility to give you the figure, but it was really huge during the match. And compared with what we can do on TV, yesterday it was 17 million people. 17 million people. So as you can imagine, now the nonlinear product is huge. So even if it's 10 or 20% or 30%, we are focused on this. And for example, our point of interest, this feature I talked to you about a few minutes ago, was not available yesterday because we were focused on the quality of service of the main of the content of the match, and we tried to be as good as possible on this. So I don't know exactly. Maybe in Germany it's more advanced. UK, I'm not sure, but we bench a lot the German players, and it's good. And of course US and GAFAM because they have all the assets. So.
Chris, maybe you can react to that from the US market.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about a general answer here, to be quite honest, because what I definitely see is so like when you're thinking about really in video data, yeah, I would say that's a good characterization of what Tom.
I think we lost Chris.
No, we lost Chris.
Okay, well, we can come back to that a little bit after, maybe.
Sorry.
I know, you're back.
That's it.
My VPN just decided
Okay.
to boot. So awesome. Yeah, no, yeah, there's definitely a strong trend to move archives now, and again, a little bit accelerated as well due to what happened the last 18 months, right? So people couldn't really access a lot of the assets if it wouldn't be tagged, and like with the data centers and so forth. So yeah, I just want to plus one what Thomas said on maybe the distribution that's a bit better in the US and in Europe, but very generic and don't have the time to go through all the details there. Also within the company, there's even data silos and like good, like very well built out situations within some companies, and then other parts of the companies are not taking advantage of it. So even within their organizations, it's spread across a little bit. So yeah, very generic.
And keep in mind that the constraint of the, I do a bit political speech now, but our constraint in terms of legal issues with RGPD, CNIL, e-privacy tomorrow is really huge. Of course, for UX, for end user, I think it's a good way to protect your personal data, but for UX, it's not. For me, it's not really relevant, and our margin compared with you in the US is lower.
One last question now, because we're coming to the end of the session. Is data of same importance for local video players versus global ones? Paul, do you want to react to that?
Well, I mean, in terms of capabilities, I'm sure the globals have more, but I would argue that the local players probably have more need for the data. Somebody like Amazon or Netflix, they can throw 10 million euros a show at content. They can spend billions on content, whereas the local players, what they need to lean on long tail content, the niche content, and also they need to create, or they're able, hopefully, to create a level of intimacy and engagement with their audience that the globals can't, just because they know them better, they're closer to them. So, and data is absolutely vital for that. So I would say it's more important for the local guys. It can be their superpower, let's say, the understanding their audience because they're closer to them, but they need data for that.
Thank you very much, Paul. I think that's a good conclusion also for this session. So thank you everyone for joining us today. As a reminder, the webinar has been recorded and will be available probably tomorrow. So yeah, that's it for us today. And thank you, Chris. Thank you, Paul, Steve, and Toma for being with us. And thank you for sharing your insights on this topic.
Thanks.
Thank you, Feli.
Thanks for the hosting. Thank you. Take care.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.